there's all kinds of scenes that I respond to in movies. I respond to music sequences. I respond to big comedy sequences. It was like they galvanized the entire theater. Everybody woke up. Everybody got connected, and and I would go see a film that had a sequence like that. I would see it 2 or 3 times at the theaters just to see that sequence, and then just to have that experience with an audience.
Welcome to Making Tarantino, the podcast. I'm your host, Philip Duke. On this podcast, we go through a list of movies that Quentin Tarantino likes or recommends to see what they're all about. And if maybe they've influenced his work, there will be spoilers. I might talk about other movies. Who knows? You never know. Today, I'm by myself. Some people say, oh man, doing a solo show, it's very difficult. I think the only difficult thing, if you're used to it, if you can do it, which I can do, is the thing of being like for me, like I was late doing last week, as you noticed, there was no show. And so I was like, oh, fuck, like, okay, when am I going to do it? And finally, you know what? A friend of mine was like, you don't have to do one every week. You could take a week off. I said, okay. So I took a week off. And spoiler alert, I recorded another episode before this, the episode that'll come up after this. So had a good time, but it's that thing of here it is Thursday night, Friday early morning, and I'm recording to then put it out Friday morning. So there's that. But anyway, so that's the thing, like the time, time blindness or whatever, where I'm like, I got plenty of time. And then I'm watching movies and doing all that. And I'm like, oh shit, wait a minute. So yeah, kind of cool. Um, but interesting. And I can figure it out. I can do it. So here we are. Um, so yeah, rate, review, and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you want more talk like this, everybody, I know I say it every week, but hey, who knows? Some new person might sign up for my Patreon. I have a Patreon. It's called Phil on Cinema, and I have one little podcast on there called Shaping Scorsese that I do. But then I also did like a movie that I love. I did Zora the Gay Blade. Um, and then I do do Shaping Scorsese, which is like movies that he likes or recommends, as well as his own movies. So it's a very fun time. I'm having a good time. I have different friends on there. Then I did a physical media collecting with a bunch of people and a bunch of my friends, different episodes with each friend. And so it was cool. So doing that. And then, I scan press kits and whatnot, put those in there. And so, yeah, you get all kinds of stuff. And it's only $5 a month. And you get 2 episodes plus all that fun stuff. And I do like tours of my office here, my room, whatever you want to call it. It's an extra room, but I call it my office. But it's also my studio. It's whatever, I'm fancy that way. But anyway, yes, go to Phil on Cinema on Patreon and check it out. So there you go. There's some free episodes up there. There's I think the first one, which was After Hours, and then some other ones that were free that I can't think of. Maybe Color Money, maybe Hustler. I think it was Color Money. Anywho, go check it out. $5 a month. That's like cheaper than a cup of coffee. You go buy a candy bar, they're like $4. And you're like, oh, for $1 more, I could get, Philip Spot. Maybe I'll listen to it all in 1 month and then I'm good. But anyway, I got like 25, 26 things up there. So pretty cool. But anyway, let's get on with the show. This movie, I don't have a Tarantino talks, but he did do a thing on the images of Bruce Lee, which is a movie that's on the list. But he, as we know, as you may know, if you're a fan of Tarantino, that, Shannon Lee got very upset that after when she went to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and she said, oh my God, like everybody was laughing at my father. I didn't like that. And it's not, it's, it's the fact that for one, she's too close, maybe, and that she was too young when he was, and that he was wearing the sunglasses, and she's like, he didn't wear those big sunglasses until the 70s and in 68 or even before, because this is supposed to be like 66, like when they're doing the Green Hornet. And she was like, my dad wasn't like that. And Quentin's thing was like, no, I've heard about her father, she just wants an apology, but he won't apologize because his thing is he's heard from other stuntmen who have said that when they would fight him, that he would not pull his punches. And so then they'd kind of tag him back on purpose and be like, fuck you then. So that's that thing. And I think that he could have been he was learning a lot of stuff. He was learning philosophy. He read all kinds of different people, had tons of books. Um, and then also his fighting styles, he would practice, like look at the karate style and then what Gung Fu had against the karate style, and then how all these different things. And he worked it into Jeet Kune Do and then trained people on it. And then after a while was like, I'm done training and and then went and did more movies. And he was still trained like maybe Kareem and Steve McQueen and stuff. And I got some cool photos on my phone of him training Sharon Tate on the Wrecking Crew, on the set of the Wrecking Crew, showing her how to karate kick and do all that. So that was cool. And you saw that in Hollywood. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you saw them like practicing in her yard. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, so that's Tarantino. And like Tarantino said, he was like, when he got into Kung Fu was other Kung Fu movies. He wasn't into, he didn't get into Bruce Lee until later. So when he's getting into these Kung Fu movies, he's seeing Bruce Lee and other people like I did. Like when I saw Kung Fu Theater, I would be like, oh, Bruce Lee. I was aware of Bruce Lee, but I didn't see any Bruce Lee movies until later. But I saw Bruce Lee. I saw all these other people like, kicking ass. Kung Fu Theater was so cool. They should have Kung Fu Theater again. I don't know why they don't, but they don't. But maybe I should start a thing called Hi Ya Channel. Oh, wait a minute. They already have it. So, yeah. Anywho, the tagline for this movie: Bruce Lee challenges the underworld to a game of death. So, Game of Death, 1978, the filmed in 73, and then and then he died, and then filmed in like 72, at whatever it was, 5 years later, but he dies in 73. But they film it in like 72. Then he gets a call for Enter the Dragon, so he stops filming. They film like 10 days. He goes off, makes Enter the Dragon. It's a big hit, and all this, and then he dies of a brain hemorrhage. And then, somebody years like goes, hey, wait, we got this footage. Let's make a movie around that. And what's funny that I'll get to later, but it's just an interesting thing. It's like sometimes you go, just don't touch it. Why even try? But also you're like, we have rare footage of Bruce Lee. Maybe we can make this work. No, if you had 45 minutes of footage for an hour and a half movie, or maybe an hour of footage for an hour and a half movie, then work it around something. If you had half of the 45 minutes, yeah, so half of that, then it would work. But when you only have like 11 minutes and 7 seconds of what they filmed, and some of the stuff you don't even show because it's those other two guys that I'll get to later. Anyway, the plot: a martial arts movie star must fake his death to bring down the syndicate that is extorting him and other celebrities, including his pop singer girlfriend, for protection money. So Bruce Lee as Billy Lowe, but also Hai Tien and Kim Tai Jong and Yun Biao also as Billy Lowe on this in 78, right? They had to just play him or fight, they just show the back of his head or whatever. Now I remember seeing this back in the day, semi recently, maybe even. And I didn't even, I had for, because you kind of forget if you don't know, which I knew, but you kind of forget you're watching this movie when it's not the big major shit like him looking in a mirror and there's a cardboard cutout stuck to the mirror of Bruce Lee's face. Other than that, you might just go, "Oh, okay." When he's fighting the people on the motorbikes, God, I sound like an old person on the motorbikes, driving through the cardboard warehouse. Then that you can go, "Oh wow," and then you go, "Oh wait, he's not even in that." But then someone like my wife, who woke up toward the end of this movie, she was like, he was going into the pagoda. I said, that's not Bruce Lee. And then boom, there's Bruce Lee. And then he did all the fighting. They did the pagoda stuff. Then I said, now that's not him walking upstairs. And she was like, oh, okay. Um, but anyway, um, Gig Young as Jim Marshall, Dean Jagger as Dr. Land. Dean Jagger's pretty cool. I meant to look him up, damn it. I was going to see what else Dean Jagger was in. Hang on, I got it right here. I got it right here. Let me check. Dean Jagger. Boom. Let's check it out. He was in Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for 12 O'Clock High, which I've never seen. That was 1949. So yeah, he was in, I'm sure he's in a lot of stuff, but he's just badass and he looks really interesting as an old guy. But yeah, it's just you know, I don't I'm looking for his movie list. Here we go. Let me go to the latest because I'm sure he was in a lot of these in later in life. Um anyway, I don't none are popping up. The Lindbergh kidnapping case was a TV movie in 76. Game of Death 78. Alligator, he was in 80. He was in as Slade. That was his last movie. So yeah, I remember he was the old man at the barbecue. Yeah, always being creepy with the girls. He's in Alfred Hitchcock Hour, all that. But anyway, so um, so where did I go? Okay. So yeah, so he's really cool. Hugh O'Brien is cool as Steiner. And he was in, oh, what did that guy say he was in? Damn it. The guy said he was in a guy that I was watching. I was watching this YouTube video that was pretty cool. Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp, a TV series from 55 to 61 that he was in. He was in he also had notable supporting role in John Wayne's last film, The Shootist. So he's a guy who you know, but he plays a good swarmy bad guy. Smarmy. So yeah, so he's pretty cool. So I like him a lot. And I was looking for his movie stuff. There's not much here, but yeah. So anyway, film career, here we are. Come Fly With Me, not the new one. There's no business like show business. I've heard of that. Ambush Bay, I've heard of that. So he's on some fantasy islands, and he was in Twins. He played father of Twins. So that was one I was thinking about. So anywho, so now we're on to who? Colleen Camp as Anne Morris. So this is one I've heard of this girl. Now look, guys, I started this making Tarantino thing because I was like, oh, this is a good idea for a podcast. It's I'll be able to watch these films that I never usually watch. I'm usually like, oh, Citizen Kane is the best movie, or I'm like, oh, all the James Bond movies and the TV series, the TV movie of James Bond. The first one was really good, Casino Royale, with the guy from fucking The Shining, the guy that hired him to watch the hotel, stuff like that. I'd be like, oh yeah, that was good, that was good. And I would go to watch other movies because of Tarantino, of course, and look them up and be like, oh my god, I gotta find Rolling Thunder, I have to find these movies. So Colleen Camp I had heard of, and I had seen her maybe so I didn't even realize I'm watching her in this, and then I'm like, let me look her up. She's in now Dare You Kill Me, Dare I Lose My Fucking Film Cred for this, but she's in Clue. And I was like, oh my God, all the time I would look at that woman and I would go, oh, who's this woman with the boobies? Um, with the cleavage. And so calling camp. And then also a movie that I may be getting that I haven't seen, but I saw if you listen to me and the Vern talking about Butch Cassidy Sundance Kid, I he mentioned the Keanu Reeves Ana de Armas movie, Knock Knock. And he was like, that was a remake of Death Game. And I said, yeah, I've heard of that. I knew it was a remake. I haven't seen the original yet, but Knock Knock was pretty good. I liked the premise. And so my friend might be sending me, well, he is going to be sending me Death Game. So that'd be cool. Also, with that, he's sending me all the Bruce Lee movies, but they're on DVD. But hey, but then from what I read on here, I may need to get that Criterion Collection thing because it's got some extra stuff on there. But anyway, calling camp is Ann Morris, Billy Lowe's girlfriend, Robert Wall as Carl Miller, Mel Novak as Stick, Dan Inosanto as Pascal. He's a third floor guardian. So that was interesting. He was training with Bruce Lee as well and had his own school that he was teaching at. And like he's the closest to knowing Bruce Lee's like style and everything. Like they both like he's not an actor who came along like, Kareem and Steve McQueen and James Coburn and all them. He's like a guy from that world. So Bruce Lee calls and says, hey, do you want to be in Game of Death? And he's like, and he goes, he was really into it. And I was afraid that he'd beat me up if I said no. So I said, okay. So I was in the movie. Sammo Hung as Lo Chen, Roy Chow as Henry Lowe. So the uncle that's, like putting on kabuki makeup in the mirror while Billy Lowe's talking to him. You're like, that guy looks familiar. Why does he look familiar? Why does he look familiar? Because he was in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. What's this? That's the antidote to the poison you just drank, Mr. Bond. But it wasn't Bond, it was Jones. But anyway, so that was cool. I was like, oh yeah, that's why he looks familiar. Tony Leung, who never ages. I cannot believe Tony Leung was in this movie. When I first saw Tony Leung in the 90s, I was like, oh my God, this guy, he's an up and comer. No, he's been in movies forever. So Tony Leung as David and Kareem Abdul Jabbar as Hakim slash Mantis. So something that Kareem said on here was on a documentary that I watched was he said that him and Bruce Lee were so fast that they had to like slow down when they fought because the cameras kind of weren't picking it all up because he was so fast, which he is pretty fast in that fight. But you would think as a 7 foot basketball player that you're going to be slow, but training with Bruce Lee, you get fast and whatever. So he's kind of fast. But also, I was telling the wife, I go, you would think you'd see those arm extend, like he's going to punch you, and you got like time before his fist gets to you. Like you would think that. But anywho, it's written by Robert Klaus and Bruce Lee. So Robert Klaus put another name in as a writer. Like he was like, oh yeah, like Jan something or something like that. But that's him. He just didn't want to say like, look, I wrote and directed this. Then he directed by Robert Klaus. And so Robert Klaus directed Enter the Dragon and he directed Golden Needles. And Bruce Lee directed the original. And then went on to do Enter the Dragon and all that. So it's interesting though that, as I said, like that they go, let's do this movie. Like it's weird. And that Robert Klaus would agree to it. You would think, I mean, money is money, but you would think Robert Klaus would be like, I did Enter the Dragon. I worked with Bruce Lee. I knew Bruce Lee. I can't do this. But no, he's like, okay, want to redo this? Okay. Um, are you guys ready for some listener opinions?
Man, I don't even have an opinion.
Well, you gotta have an opinion.
Fred Schaefer on Twitter wrote, quote, incredible cast, great martial arts showcase, but will forever be in the shadow of what might have been, end quote, which is very true. After you watch this documentary I'll tell you about when we're done discussing this movie, you'll definitely be like, oh yeah, like this, it would have been great, but also, like somebody said, it wouldn't have been that great. It would have been just your formulaic kind of movie like that. But because of the idea of Game of Death, of going through this 5-story pagoda to get to this treasure, then you don't have something like Judge Dredd, the new Judge Dredd, dare I say that. You don't have the Raid, you don't have, video games that have to beat bosses to get on, like all of this stuff that it's just like, oh my God. So anyway, Eric Clapp on Instagram wrote, quote, it's difficult to watch the first half of the movie, but once that ending starts up, it's maybe the best Bruce we will ever get. He was clearly in top form and was ready to explode from there, end quote, which I agree. When it gets to that, you're kind of waiting for it. So that's what is good. You're like, okay, this movie's all right. Okay, it's some chasing with some motorbikes. Okay, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, you get to that end state and you're like, oh, there he is. Now he's here. He's in form. He's cool. And he fights. And he's fighting in different styles for each person. And on the one, he's watching, I think it's Dan and Santa and Santo, Instant, that guy. I think when he's fighting him, he's like watching his hands and watching his feet. And it's really cool. His head's down and he's watching. And that's what his idea was, like different styles for each thing. And that's where toward the end, you'll learn it on the documentary. Later on, as he got more and more into it, he realized like you don't need your style. You don't have to be a certain way. And that's why he says, like, be water, like makes sense. Gilbert Benitez, on my personal Facebook page, wrote, quote, great movie. I remember seeing it as a kid at Westdale, end quote. So I was here in Arizona, here in Phoenix. So yeah, I remember Westdale vaguely. John E. Egbert on my personal Facebook page wrote, quote, several awesome fight scenes, but due to the untimely death of Mr. Lee, the movie was a cobbled together mess. Better off YouTubing deleted fight scenes, Jackie Chan, and, quote, best Bruce Lee fights of all time, end quote. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, like you see the other footage with the other two guys going in, like I'll get to that. But anyway, it's really fucking cool. But what we get in this movie is pretty cool. Brian Potter on the Making Tarantino, the podcast Facebook page wrote, quote, it's something you've got to see. It has great moments. It has unbelievably bad shots in some scenes, like legendarily bad shots. I think there's a cardboard picture that is used as a character at one point. I mean, you've got to watch it at least once if you're a Kung Fu movie fan, end quote. So, yeah, there's the scenes where they're just somebody stepping, he's supposed to be Bruce Lee. You're like, okay, I'll get with that. But when it goes to that cardboard cutout on the mirror, you're just like, why? Like, why did you even need to show that? You could have showed him from behind, waited for him to turn around, and then done it, whatever. Anyway. Caesar Manansala from the Making Tarantino, the podcast page, wrote, quote, Caesar from the Rad Revival House here. So everybody check out Rad Revival House, the podcast. They just wrapped up season 2, and it's a good show. His premise is like you're coming to a movie class, and he's teaching you about why this movie's good or who this director is or who this actor is. Very cool. Caesar from the Rad Revival House here. I don't remember much about the altered new version they generated after the unfinished material Bruce Lee filmed prior to his death, but I do recall Lee's epic fight scenes with Filipino martial arts god Dan Inosanto. See, that was a name I couldn't think of. Naturally, his showdown with towering killer Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and that silly part where Lee's face was cut out and placed on his double's head. Yeah, it was horrible. Jennifer Upton on the Making Tarantino, the podcast page, wrote, quote, I only remember a few things about this film. One, Bruce's Bumblebee tracksuit. 2, the fight with Kareem. 3, actual footage from Bruce's funeral, which was in very poor taste on the part of Golden Harvest and Raymond Chow, end quote, which I agree. And a lot of people agree. It's like you could show the crowd the funeral, but you didn't have to show the casket with a glass over it. Show that. Like, no. Scott Crosher on the same page wrote, he's got Church of Tarantino podcast, and it's pretty good. He goes through, he does all kinds of stuff over there. He's got, they'll go through scenes or what your favorite, female actors are, female characters, like who's your favorite character, like all kinds of stuff. Pretty cool. Quote, this film is a blueprint for the boss level fighting games like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. Plus, is there a more iconic Bruce Lee image than him in that sweet yellow with black stripes jumpsuit? End quote. Yeah. No, there isn't. And Peter Alden on the Video Archives podcast fans page on Facebook wrote, quote, don't think, feel. Then he added, Enter the Dragon is tears above, end quote. So, yeah, I agree. It is, but it's also him trying to find his way of what his certain thing is. He knows that he's special. Bruce Lee, as Bruce Lee, is like, what can I do that's different? I don't want to be, I don't want to be doing these regular kung fu movies. Mine can be special, and I can teach more stuff, and I can have more enlightenment, and it'll be a movie about something. And but to get in, he's got to get his foot in the door. As we all know, the story of, he goes to the producers and says, hey, I got an idea for a TV series. And they go, what's it called? He goes, it's called The Warrior. And it's about this, and I'd play the warrior. And it's about this guy who comes from like a Shaolin school, and then he travels the world. He's traveling through America, and he gets in fights and does all this stuff and learns and knows things. It's full of philosophy. It's full of everything. And they go, yeah, I don't know. And then they go on and get, fucking David Carradine to be in it and steal his idea and call it Kung Fu. And, and he's like, motherfucker, like, hello. But at that time, nobody was going to risk giving this Asian actor, put him on TV as the main lead. You're Kato from fucking Green Lantern, from the Green Hornet. Why are we going to trust you to do this? Like, no. And, and sure as shit, like, boom, so yeah, it's crazy, but we have some great films that he did. So it's good that we have that. But let's hear a word from our sponsor.
Hey, cinephiles! At cinemaforce.net, you will find a channel devoted to all forms of cinema appreciation. There are epic essays on films, documentaries, and exclusive series like Better in Black and White. And if you want to go even deeper, you can join Cinema Force on Instagram and explore the more physical history of film through press kits and physical media. Go to cinemaforce.net and subscribe to the YouTube channel now.
Everybody, go check that out. I know I tell you every week, it's got some good shit on there. There's a Invasion of the Body Snatchers retrospective about all of the Body Snatcher movies. There's one on Sabata, all kinds of great stuff. Is it Sabata? Now I'm scared that I got it wrong, that it's Sartana. Anyway, some good shit on there. There's the Iron Eagle one. There's the Airport one. Great stuff. Anyway, so this plot, like I saw this movie a few days ago. So I forget exactly. I'm thinking of getting a TV, mounting it from my ceiling, and then I can do like Sam and watch it while I'm talking about it. But the 1978 version uses portions of the original footage married to an entirely new plot involving a new character, Billy Lowe. Excuse me. So I'll get to after this, I'll tell you what the original is going to be. I'll go through more of that. Struggling against a racketeering syndicate after gaining international success as a martial arts movie star. So the movie starts with Way of the Dragon, like the end of Way of the Dragon or close to the end, when he's fighting Chuck Norris. And so you're like, oh, they're just going to play this whole scene out. pretty much. But they don't play the whole thing out, but they play him fighting him and he dies. You know, he kills Chuck Norris. Um, and then, you know, and then all of a sudden you see the crew behind it. Like, you know, the bell goes off and now they've stopped and now they throw Bruce Lee a towel and he wipes his face off and now he's not Bruce Lee anymore. Now he's, you know, one of the other actors. And and it's interesting, they asked Bruce Lee to be in this and he said no. So which is kind of respectable, but also you built your career on this, but that's totally cool. So then he so now all of a sudden, you know, the syndicates like wanting money, which they were. These, you know, with this, you know, Shawscope, Raymond Chow, like all these people, there was some vicious shit that would go on that, you know, they had to fight against. And these actors. And but this is like, you know, American mob, whatever, in Hong Kong. So when Billy refuses to be intimidated by the syndicate, so that main guy, Hugh O'Brien, is just walks in and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" He tries to talk to him, and he's like, "Yeah, no, I don't. No, I'm gonna do my own thing. I don't need it." So, syndicate henchman Steiner and his gang of thugs, syndicate owner Dr. Land, orders his assassination to serve as an example to others. So now it's really interesting. Now they go from Way of the Dragon. Now it goes to I think this is the part. Yeah. So the new film is going to be Fist of Fury. And at the end of Fist of Fury, he jumps in the air. The cops are bringing him out. There's a whole gang on the other side of the gate. And he jumps in the air and it's freeze frame, the end of the movie. You're like, oh, wow, what's going to happen? Give me part two. And then part two changes everything. But, and it's not with Bruce Lee. Um, so so then you're like, oh, okay. So he's doing that. He goes to jump at the camera for them to do the freeze frame and disguises as a stuntman, lands assassin Stick, Mel Novak, sneaks onto the set of Billy's new film and shoots Billy during filming. A fragment of the bullet passes through Billy's face, leaving him alive but in need of plastic surgery, which alters his facial features. Now, this is something that you could have done earlier and been like, oh, yeah, you know, just right away and been like, okay, now his face should change, or now he's got to wear a beard, or now he's got to have a prosthetic or something, right? And now you're like, okay, now it doesn't look like Bruce Lee, but 3/4 of his face is covered or something, right? But anyway, but I'm fine with it. So now you're like, oh shit, they shot him and he shoots him in the face. And everybody's like freaking out and going, what's going on? What's going on? And then Billy, during this time, Billy's like, wait a minute, he takes the opportunity to fake his death and disguise himself to exact revenge against those who wronged him one at a time. So he's like, don't tell Colleen Camp, my fiance, do not tell her that I'm alive. And so his journalist buddy is like, okay, his journalist buddy's Gig Young. Did I even yeah, I mentioned Gig Young. There's a whole crazy tragic story on the Gig Young. And if you know, you know, but if you don't, I'll tell you soon. So he is doing the Gig Young so Gig Young says, okay, I won't tell her. So they go to the funeral, they're crying, but they show the funeral, the real funeral of Bruce Lee. They show them bringing his casket out and they show the casket's open, the glass is over it, and you can see Bruce Lee in there. And as people said, for one, it's bad taste. For two, imagine now you hear Game of Death coming out as his family. You're Linda, you're the kids, Linda bringing the kids to the movie, and you're like, hey, look, we're going to see Game of Death. It's got dad in it. Like, it'll be cool. Okay. And then you're watching it and you're like, oh, okay, well, that's not him, but they'll show the footage later. Okay. And then all of a sudden that scene comes up and you're like, it's all comes back to you right then. And it's, you know, like 5 years later and you're fucked up. Like, so yeah, very bad taste. But, so Billy takes the opportunity, like I said, to fake his death, and get back at him one at a time. when the syndicate threatens and kidnaps his fiancee, Anne Morris, which happens later, but Colleen Camp, Billy is forced to come out of hiding to save her. So Billy's like keeping an eye on her, and he's got this like Fu Manchu, like this big beard, and he's like, dressed in the Chinese clothes. And then all of a sudden he like saves her, and then she's like Billy, and he has to make himself known, and he's like, okay, yeah, but don't tell anyone. And then they find out, and they're like, no, it's got to be him. And Dr. Land is like, okay, we need to get this motherfucker. And they're like, kidnap. And so he's taking them out, like, one by one. And but then it's like, okay, now we're gonna kidnap Colleen Camp. And there's a part where they're in the car together and they surround the car. And so he gets out and they have this fight, and then they take her. And now, and there's these guys that keep showing up that Ben, the guy who he's a martial arts Hong Kong guy who really Ben Logan, I think is his name that I was looking for. But anyway, he said that it is funny how, I'm sorry, I'm going through here looking for it. He said it's funny how these guys are trying, like, if you're trying to be indiscreet, don't wear like a black tracksuit with yellow stripes and a yellow tracksuit with black stripes. Like, come on. So, it's kind of funny. And God damn it, I can't find this guy. But anyway, I believe it's Ben Logan. Forgive me, everybody. But anywho, so yeah, maybe it's right here. Anyway. Okay, forget it. Almost had it. Anyway, yeah. Sorry, Bay Logan. Sorry. So yeah, it's like, come on, you're trying to be inconspicuous and you do this, like, what the fuck? So so now then there's this motorcycle thing. I think it's pretty cool because it's got some cool where he's knocking people off their bikes, but there is a thing where he kicks a guy and the guy like flies like through like pretty far, like, he's ratcheted with something, but it's really neat. I thought it was pretty cool. So then so now he has to go get her because they have her in this pagoda. And in this revised but chopped footage, Bruce Lee's fight scenes inside the pagoda are assumed to take place in the upper floors of the Red Pepper restaurant. So he has, which I'll get to the difference, but this scene later on, they found added footage. This documentary that I watched was from 2000, I believe, and 2000, 2001, I think it was 2000. And some of it was put together from footage from other things, but from when they talked to her before or after Dragon came out, the Bruce Lee story. I think anyway. So now this footage, they found more footage. So the fight scene is a little longer in the documentary. This one seems shorter, but it's really cool. But they had to make it shorter because in the original, he's got these two guys with him. But anyway, so Dan Inosanto as Pasquale, the lower floor guardian, and then Lee Han Jae as the restaurant fighter, the middle floor guardian, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as Hakim, the quarter floor guardian, and Hugh O'Brien as Steiner, top floor guardian. So it wasn't that he was watching Dan Inosanto, it was the Jai Han Jae that he was watching. So he fights with nunchucks, the one guy, the other guy's fighting like fist, and they're doing kicks and they're doing fist. And Bruce Lee's got this cool thing. He's got his head down. He's watching the other guy's fist. And he's not like, and on the first one, he's kind of bravado, kind of showing off. The other guy is too, with his nunchucks and like flipping them all around. And so it's like, oh, okay. So it's really cool. It's a really cool fight scene. That's where like everybody said, and like, Eric said, and I agree that You're going through the movie, you're like, okay, this is okay. When it gets to that, you're like, okay, now we're in it. You're rubbing your hands together. All right. Um, then when he gets to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the original, there's a thing. He's light sensitive. That's why he's wearing sunglasses, and you kind of get that in this one, but you're not sure. Is he blind or is he light sensitive? And in there, Bruce Lee knocks out the screen to bring the light in, and now he notices like, oh, he's light sensitive, so now he knows what to do to fight it, and that's his thing. He reads everybody's thing, and that's what else is kind of cool if you think about it. But I know Quentin wasn't thinking about it. But the thing with the fight in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, if you read the book, was that fight with Bruce Lee is that Cliff Booth lets himself lose on that first one because he wants to see how Bruce Lee's going to move. He does this with every fight that he gets in with anybody. So he'll have a fall down, and then the second time he's like, okay, I know what his move is. He counters it, gets him. Now he knocked Bruce Lee on his ass. Now the third time he would have probably knocked Bruce Lee on his ass. Quentin's thing to Shannon was the actor Brad Pitt could not beat Bruce Lee, but the character that I created, Cliff Booth, could beat Bruce Lee. And that's the thing. Like, this is your creation. You can write, you know, is the Freddy Krueger, is Wes Craven going to be like, hey, wait a minute. You got Freddy Krueger being hurt by Jason in this movie, like, what the hell? Like, Freddy versus Jason? No way. It's like, no, they're characters. Come on. But Bruce Lee is a person. I get it. But anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that, but you know what I mean. So he fights his way up this thing to get to her. She's at the top and to save her. So but him and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, it's a pretty cool fight where I think I watched it the first time and I was just like, oh, it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Like, you're in that mode. But this time I'm like, oh, these fights are pretty cool. But before you're just like, big legs but now you're like, oh, he's got some form. But anyway, so now Bruce Lee, and it's all Bruce Lee all the way through. That's what's great. All these fights are real Bruce Lee. In the earlier stuff, when he does fight, there's somebody else doing the voice of like, hell yeah, like all the high pitched like things that he would do. And so then he makes his way up the pagoda to the final thing. Dr. Land, Dean Jagger, and his thugs have laid an ambush. But in the end, Billy survives the ambush, rescues Anne, and destroys each of the main mobsters one by one. So so he runs up there, and Dr. Land is sitting at a desk, and he runs over, and now it's not Bruce Lee. When he runs up the stairs to the 5th floor, stops being Bruce Lee. And he runs up there, and the guy playing Billy Lowe pulls the head off of Dr. Land, and he's like wax. And then he finds him like running out onto the roof, and so he chases him. And that's what some people are saying. That's funny. Is like, a minute ago it was light outside and you were defeating, and now you're, in the dark, up on the roof. And then something else, there were different versions of the ending of this movie. One was just like in noir, where you always had to have the bad guy during the Hays Code, you had to have the bad guy being punished. So the bad guy had to get arrested or killed. And in this, Billy Lowe then is brought in by the police and put into the paddy wagon, and he leaves. That's the original cut, or that's a cut that they did in China, I think. And then the Mandarin cut is like ends with Colleen Camp and Billy Lowe getting on a cruise ship and leaving, and they're going to go start a new life. But the Mandarin version doesn't have any audio to it. But it's kind of cool that they filmed it. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun at least to see that. You got to work up to that, but you could watch like I did. So after I saw Game of Death, then the next day I watched Bruce Lee, A Warrior's Journey, that I was going to tell you all to watch. That's coming up later. But what was funny though, that I'll talk about that in a second, but as the movie ended, my wife was watching that end fight with me. And then when it went to the end credits and it showed him fighting Robert Baker from Fist of Fury, my wife saw Robert Baker and she's like, is that Anchorman? Is that Ron? And I was like, no, honey. And she's like, oh, I go, but you're funny. And then and he's really good. Fucking that Fist of Fury fight is fucking badass. But anyway, um, so so now the original plot from 72 is, let's go up here and I will read it here. The original plot involves Lee playing the role of Hai Tian. Like this, also this plot is sounds like awesome. Like it would be cool. Like I would love to see a remake done by somebody, just it's really, I mean, it's your formulaic mobster thing, but a retired champion martial artist who is confronted by Korean underworld gangs. They tell him the story of a pagoda where guns are prohibited. The pagoda is under heavy guard by highly skilled martial artists. They are protecting a stolen Chinese national treasure, which is not identified at all in any surviving material. So they found Bruce Lee's like handwritten notes of how everything would work out. It's really cool. Um, the Speaking of, I wish there was something on this. I wish it would have all that in the Criterion Collection version. I don't know. I don't have that. But what I just found on a friend of mine gave me the Weird Science, the Arrow Weird Science, but he got it, he gets it given to him. So it doesn't have the case or anything with it. So he gave it to me. And so I was like, oh, okay. So I put it on today. And one of the special features is you can read the script from page one all the way through, like you would with photos. Like you just click through. I would love that for like this. So you could read everything and put it together on your own. Or you could do like this and just read this thing and figure it all out. But anywho, um, held on its top level. That's where this treasure is held. The gang boss wants Hai to be part of a group of martial artists he assembled to help retrieve said item by fighting the Guardians. This is the boss's second team he's sending. The first team he sent was nearly wiped out. They forced the reluctant Hai to participate by abducting his two young siblings, along with four other martial artists, two played by James Tien and Chai Hyun. Hai battles his way up a 5 level pagoda. The team encounters a different and stronger challenge on each floor. So these guys are with him on each floor. The one's kind of a cocky guy, but he can handle his shit. The other guys and they kind of wait for each other. They're like, well, like Bruce Lee will be like, you, and the guy's like, all right, and he goes on and he'll fight, and then if he loses, then Bruce Lee's like, okay, I'll go in, and it's really cool that they work their way up. But then one of the guys gets killed by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and there is there is a really cool part. Made me laugh, but it was really cool. But so they're on like level 2 or 3, and that kind of cocky guy is like like he just wants to go on. So he's waiting for them to be done fighting the one guy, and so he's just like, fuck it. And he goes around him and goes up the stairs. The stairs are in the middle. If you haven't seen this, the stairs are in the middle of the room. So he runs over the stairs. He runs up the stairs. Now he's going to fight number 4 by himself or number 3 by himself. And he gets up there. And next thing you see, while they're fighting in the foreground, in the background, you just see this body fall down from the stairs, like almost like a dummy body, but it doesn't focus on him landing. It just, you see this body fly through the air onto the ground. And that was him. Like, yeah, you need, like, don't go by yourself. You need these guys, these guys that are guarding this national treasure, whatever it is, this Chinese national treasure, are the best of the best. And it kind of sucks that they do need 3 of them to take them out. But by the end, by the 4th one or whatever, the 5th one, I think the final guard, let me check right here. I think the final guy was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Yeah, on the 5th floor, Guardian. So anyway, So where was I? Hi, abducting is two. So along with four other martial artists who played by them, Hai battles his way to the level of the pagoda. The team encounters a different and stronger challenge on each floor, which I did say. As originally scripted by Lee, Hai and company enter the temple grounds, where at the pagoda base they fight 10 karate black belts. Now, this is just fucking awesome right there. Like, how cool is that? Inside the pagoda, Hayes' team encounters a different opponent on each floor, each one more formidable than the last. The other fighters assisting Hay are handily defeated by the pagoda guardians, as they're not as skilled as Hay. The guardian, in turn, must be defeated by Hay. So at the pagoda raid, Hayes' group was to fight 25 floor guardians. So Bolo Yang was the sensei, Lam Ching Yang, Yun Wao, Unicorn Chan, Bi Chan, Wu Gan, and 14 others as the 20 black belt karate fighters. That's on the ground floor Guardians. That was never filmed because he filmed the main stuff first, which is good. You film all that shit first, then you go back and you find that, you fight the big one. Um, Hwang In Shik is Korean Hapkido master number one. He's the first floor guardian. Only the ground floor footage survives. Taki Kimura as praying mantis style Shifu, second floor guardian. That was never filmed either. But like, see how one's Hapkido, one's mantis style Shifu, and then Dan Inosanto as Eskrima Filipina, the third floor guardian. So he's fighting with Eskrima sticks and shit. Like, that's awesome. And then Ji Han Jae as Korean Hapkido Master number two. So now you're back to Hapkido, but now this is the second master. Like, now he's even better. Like, now you're like, oh shit, that's a fourth floor guardian. Then Kareem Abdul Jabbar as Mantis, the fifth floor guardian. So I could also see in this where you're Steve McQueen, you're practicing with Bruce Lee. There's that, right? You're practicing, you're fighting, Sharon Tate's doing her thing. You're not maybe as experienced as Steve McQueen. But if you're Kareem Abdul Jabbar that is tagged by Bruce Lee to be in this movie because you're 7 feet tall and it'd be really cool, I think he's going to give you more training and you're going to get more stuff with him. Rest in peace, Kareem Abdul Jabbar. But it's awesome. Hai would defeat all 25 formidable masters after his follow raiders were taken down by each master of the floor, the last one being James Tien's character. He's beaten by the final guardian, Kareem Abdul Jabbar, a giant fighter who fights with a free and fluid fighting style similar to Hai's Jeet Kune Do. So that's the other thing. They're matched. That's what's cool. They're kind of matched there at the end. But also Bruce Lee can adapt, and that's that thing, like adapt, I Chi, like all the stuff that Collateral taught us. Anyway, um, because of the Guardian's great size and strength, in addition to his potent martial artistry, he can only be defeated when Hay recognizes he exploits his greatest weakness, an unusually high sensitivity to light. Like I said, and so he gets thrown into that wall and his arms go through it. And then he's like, oh, wait a minute. Then he realizes, it's very cool. Immediately after defeating the giant guardian, Hay turns around and descends the staircase heading out of the pagoda. Despite all the talk of something awaiting up top of the now unguarded flight of stairs, there is no mention of anyone going up to retrieve it. No surviving material explains how this affects Hay or his captive siblings. An additional character would be played by George Lazenby, being a spiritual guru involved in some sort of war who would help Hai at the end. So what's cool about this is it is that thing of you're fighting for something and then it's nothing. It's fugazi. It's whatever, you can't hold it. It's so you go through all that and there's nothing. And you're like, it's the Maltese Falcon. Stuff dreams are made of. What do you mean? It's nothing. And it's it's the journey, not the destination, which he says in Enter the Dragon. It's like a finger pointing to the moon. Don't focus on the finger or you miss all the heavenly glory. And you're like, yeah, don't focus on the thing you're going for. Focus on living in the moment and being, being you, being now, being present. And yeah, so it's very cool. So let's see. Although the pagoda was supposed to have 5 floors, complete scenes were only shot for 3 of the floors: the Temple of the Tiger, where Lee faced Inosanto; the Temple of the Dragon, where he fought Jihan and the final floor, known as Temple of the Unknown, where he fought Abdul Jabbar. Hapkido master Huang In-shik was slated to play the guardian of the first floor, a master of kick-oriented style, while Bruce's longtime student and good friend Taki Kimura was asked to play the guardian of the second floor, a stylist of praying mantis kung fu. So, like I said, that would have been cool. The goal of the film's plot was to showcase Lee's beliefs regarding the principles of martial arts. As each martial art is defeated, including Lee's allies, the flaws in their fighting style are revealed. Some, like Dan Inosanto character, rely too much on fixed patterns and of offensive and defensive techniques, while others lack economy of motion. Lee defeats his opponents by having a fighting style that involves fluid movement, unpredictability, and an eclectic blend of techniques. His dialogue often includes comments on their weaknesses. And that's what's cool. He does. And that's what else is cool that he learned later by doing Jeet Kune Do and doing things of like, you don't need all this movement. You don't need all this stuff. You can do things quicker and shorter strokes. You don't need to go through all this stuff to learn your regular karate when you could just do this and the economy of movement. And it's very cool. And here's the part where I was mentioning this. Everybody should. Here's what I wrote for those who want to hear about Bruce Lee and the original version of this film. Check out Bruce Lee: A Warrior's Journey. I found it on Peacock. It was really good. And here's a thing written about it. Several years later, Bruce Lee historian John Little released Bruce Lee: A Warrior's Journey, a documentary revealing the original footage and storyline of the Game of Death. The documentary also includes a fairly in-depth biography of Lee and leads into the filming of the Game of Death. Originally meant to be a documentary in its own right, it can now be found on the second disc of the 2004 special edition DVD release of Enter the Dragon, along with the documentary Bruce Lee: The Curse of the Dragon. So yeah, this movie, so much fun. So yeah, reviews that I have here. Game of Death could be considered, I believe this too. Game of Death could be considered more, it's not really a review, but it kind of wraps it up. Game of Death could be considered more accessible to Western audiences than Lee's previous films, compared to other Bruce Lee films like The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, and The Way of the Dragon. Game of Death has more Western characters, and the story structure is more straightforward and less culturally specific to Asia. So, yeah, I totally agree. I believe that, yeah, a lot of people are going to go, oh, watch it. And there's people who will watch this. They won't even notice, like, oh, that wasn't Bruce Lee. There's, not racist people. There's people who go, what Chinese guy was that? Was that other Chinese guy? But it's the same thing. Watch Transformers movie and you're like, wait, what robot's fighting? I can't tell. Not the same thing, but those kind of people are like, I can't tell. But anyway, in this movie, did I see anything I think Tarantino might like to use in the film? Obviously, his yellow and black tracksuit, like it's badass, it's iconic. He's been wearing like the Adidas shoes. So he said he used to wear these Chinese shoes that he had, but then he would wear these Adidas also. So I need to find some of those. I was gonna get a tracksuit so I could be on the video doing in the tracksuit, but I don't. I got my Mystery Machine t-shirt. So yeah, the Bruce Lee thing in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he even plays the Bruce Lee stuff of him from the Wrecking Crew teaching Sharon Tate how to fight. all that stuff. It's really cool. The John Barry music I didn't even mention that I just remembered. John Barry, the music is really good in this. Um, so yeah, it's just so good. Our star rating system here is 1 to 5, 5 being the best. I rate this movie 3 out of 5. Because it's better than average. You had that thing with Bruce Lee in the middle or toward the end. It was really good. You have Colleen Camp, like, oh, beautiful. She didn't get naked. She'll get naked later. Would I buy this movie around or find it for free? I'm having it given to me, but like I said, now I want to go get that Criterion collection. Like, I think that would have everything that you need. I've seen things that come with it, and it's full of shit. And it's like, yeah, I need it, right? But also it's $70 or something, and it's like, but Fist of Fury is great. Enter the Dragon's great. Like all these, I have Enter the Dragon on digital, 4K digital, but come on, physical is the way to go, right? How dare you, Philip? Anyway, so yeah, but even though I'm getting it on DVD, I would buy it, and probably looks a whole lot. I haven't even watched my Enter the Dragon on 4K yet. So, anywho, do you want to hear Phil's film favorite of the week? It is Ballerina from 2025. The plot, this movie, right? An assassin trained in the traditions of the Ruska Roma organization sets out to seek revenge after her father's death. So I give this 3.5 stars, but I might move it. The thing with this movie, and I don't want to kind of give it away, I'll give you an example, I'll give you a little hint, is in the beginning, when I wanted to find audio of Quentin Tarantino saying, I never went to film school, I went to films. I learned films. I watched movies, and that's how I learned. But that was only in a journalist that he was interviewing with. Journalist, so he said it and they wrote it down. So there's no audio of him saying it. So I found, so in the beginning, when I started the thing, I had him going like, you don't have to know how to make film. You can just, you don't have to know what a lens is. Just go make a movie. And then I found this clip of him saying why he would go to movies. He'd go to movies 3 or 4 times just to see that sequence. This movie, Ballerina, there's a scene in there where they're fighting. I'll just say 2 flamethrowers. Like, does that get you excited? Like, they're not shooting each other with guns. They do that through the movie. They fight regular kung fu. She gets beat up a lot, which it's always cool when somebody gets beat down and then they come back. And, it's like, people may not like the Marvel movies, but the thing that was cool with Captain America was, he's like, I could do this all day. And you're like, yeah, fucking give it to him. And that's how she is. She's like being beat up, but she's like, I want revenge. I got to go after Usual Suspect, which is, Gabriel Byrne. So it's really cool. And they have like 2 flamethrowers fighting each other. And it's like, dude, like, I was like, I have never seen something like this before. It's amazing. So, yeah. So I would almost just run back to go see that. Like, if a movie wasn't $20 to go see in Dolby, but hey, and then I got to buy my nachos. I got to buy my drink, but I've already bought my Superman tickets for June 11th or June 10th, actually, July 10th. Sorry. You're like, you missed it, dude. July 10th is when that'll be coming out in Dolby. I'm going to go see it. Be cool, be fun. Hopefully it'll be good. So yeah, so that's that. Hang on, I got my dates mixed up. I got to get my dates right. Oh yeah. So come back on June 20th when I will be joined once again by Cassandra Kokendorfer, a comedian and host of the podcast Big Lee Marvin fan. Everybody, fucking listen to this podcast. It's good. She's reading all kinds of books about Lee Marvin. She even had the author of one book that he did called Point Blank. It's like Lee Marvin, about Lee Marvin's life. And then another book that's called Killing Generals, that's about the making of like The Dirty Dozen. And it's really fucking cool. And she'll go through all that. She goes through Lee Marvin's military career, which I talked to her about on the show on the 20th. And it's fucking It's just really good. She puts a lot of stuff into it. And of course, Big Lee Marvin fan came from, Quentin from Reservoir Dogs. You're a Big Lee Marvin fan. Me too. So yeah, but come back for that. Sorry, I got on a tangent. But come back when I talk to Cassandra Kokendorfer about That's right. From 1972, it's Slaughter. The plot is Slaughter, a former Green Beret, avenges the killing of loved ones by the mob, and in so doing is coerced by the feds into traveling to Mexico to finish off surviving members. Here is a trailer.
Slaughter. Slaughter. It's not only his name, it's his business. And sometimes his pleasure. Slaughter. The Buzz wanted him alive for a murder rap. The mob wanted him dead for insurance. She wanted him healthy for personal reasons. And that's only for openers. Slaughter. He had a belly gun, 4 grenades, an automatic rifle, and a theory. The best defense is to attack. See Slaughter, starring Jim Brown, Stella Stevens, Rip Torn, and Cameron Mitchell. An American international picture rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parents. Slaughter.
Baddest kid that ever walked there.
Dude, if you guys have not seen blaxploitation movie, I'm sure you have. This is the third one that we've done on here. We did Black Gun, we did Bucktown first, then Black Gun, and then this. And it's fucking amazing. This movie is really good. And you got Stella Stevens naked, topless. So rest in peace, Stella Stevens. Rest in peace, Jim Brown. So yeah, it's awesome. It's streaming for free on Amazon Prime, or you can rent or buy it to stream on Apple or Amazon, or you could buy a physical copy, which I'm going to do. I'm going to buy this, and then they made Slaughter's big ripoff. Everybody should go get the book, Blaxploitation, a reference guide to Blaxploitation. It's by Josiah Howard. It's really good. It's got interviews in there, and then it's got like the posters, like a whole bunch of cool posters. And and then a breakdown of it. Has every blaxploitation movie listed with a little blurb about it. So it is really cool. So everybody check that out. Thank you for joining us. I hope you had fun. I got something coming up for you. I got some Bruce Lee saying something. Thank you for joining us. We hope you had fun and maybe learned something about a movie that may have had a part in making Tarantino. Goodbye.
This is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.